And we're back. How are you,
Hello,
Jamie?
hello, hello.
Good to see you.
Absolutely. Looking good, looking healthy.
Thank you, sir. COVID's done as well, right?
Oh,
Well,
absolutely. Well, the weather has been good, so I think that helps.
absolutely. Well, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone else who is tuning in. Thank you so much for joining us for another session of Juniper's Higher Education series. As you may know, my name is Kia Cottrell, and I'm going to be your host. And I am joined with Jamie Pitchforth, who is our higher education lead for Europe, Middle East, and Africa. And today we are going to be talking about diversity. And not just diversity, but specifically technology diversity, and what that looks like in the higher education space. So feel free, please drop any comments, questions in the chat window. And also, we want to hear from you. Where are you from? Where are you calling in from today? Are you waking up with a nice cup of coffee? Are you ending the day with a glass of wine? Please feel free to give us some feedback. So, Jamie, this is a tough
Yes,
topic. I'm not going to lie to you. Diversity is definitely on the top of minds of people everywhere, and it's definitely globally. And that's no different for the education establishments and university leaders and professors alike. But when we actually talk about diversity from a technology perspective, how does the network specifically play in driving this, stronger sense of community and inclusion?
absolutely. And I think they're two key words: equality and inclusion. So, Kia, you're absolutely right. You log on to any university website around the world and look at their strategic vision and values, and you'll see the words diversity, equality, inclusion in pretty much every case. So,
Yeah.
really the proliferation of connected devices, cloud applications, what that's done is really driven a huge change in the culture of today's students. Um, it's about connectivity. They have a culture of living their lives with mobile device in hand, that need, that expectation that they get access to any resource they want, anytime and any place. And the universities are very smart. They see their students, the culture of the students changing, and because it's a competitive world and students have choice, they're really embracing the network and using the mediums that the students are using to start to build and grow and connect with their students, enable their education, their research, but very, very importantly, their social environments as well. So in a nutshell, the universities are using the network to stay connected with the students online. Social networking cultures are making it easier for the universities to build and advertise, events, groups, activities that really focus on the diversity and inclusion for all students.
So it sounds like you're actually saying that the network is allowing for a greater reach, or almost helping to
Absolutely.
remove that barrier for access. And I think if I look back at this year alone, that's definitely something that's come center stage with everything, right? We moved to this remote model, everyone's working from home. Same thing for students, right? I mean, you hear stories all the time where students have gone off to university, gone off to college, and
Yeah.
spent their entire year in their dormitory because they've actually not been able to attend in person. But I think, what else are you seeing in that shift from removing the barriers of access, especially been amplified by the recent pandemic?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think, a great example has been the last 12 months and the global pandemic and how that has affected some students more than others. We live in a world where not all things are equal. One size doesn't fit all. And students, communities have been thrust into that world of blended, hybrid. They're all sent home or cast off into their halls of residence. And as a result of that, many of the students had a degraded ability to reach their potential,
Yeah.
particularly those, off campus that are, I'll say, in maybe poorer communities where parents, family and what have you, are not so affluent and maybe struggle to deliver the latest and greatest technologies, the latest and greatest, bandwidths and what have you for those students. So the universities have really been scrambling to try and level the playing field for those students that are both on campus and off campus, to make sure that everybody gets that equal opportunity.
Yeah, I think it's actually interesting. We sometimes take for granted the access to Wi-Fi, the access to the internet that we have. I mean, I hear stories when in primary education, when students who don't have broadband at home were actually going to, car parks of shopping centers to log into the Wi-Fi so they could submit their homework. So I think really having that network layer is really leveling the playing field, and that's critical to help bridge the digital divide, which is also something we hear a lot when we speak to some of our customers who are responsible for digital transformation within cities, right? So it extends.
Absolutely.
And when you look at the campus, you and I, we talk about beyond the campus networking, because it's no longer just we need to set up a connectivity infrastructure that students can use when they come to school, but actually how can they access this from beyond? And what I love most about this concept, and I'm going to say it, but setting up that dual purpose network, right? Because now we're saying, here's how we can bridge that digital divide, but also once that network is in place, here are the additional programs we could put in place to help further drive that sense of community inclusion and make sure that there's no student left behind, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's critical. And I think as part of that now, the network is taken a slightly different role. It's become very, very quickly, and I'm not saying that it wasn't to some universities that we were already there, but I think there's a general consensus. The network is now identified very much as a mission critical business asset. And I think the key word there being asset. And an enabler. And when I say an enabler, it's enabling education, it's enabling research, but it's also enabling that social experience. Those students that go to university, it's not all about education, research, and getting that qualification. It's a cultural thing, an experience. And because of that generation, we call them Generation Z, the connected generation, because of how their culture works, the fact that they are a connected, generation, the network has a massive impact positively, when you're getting great connectivity and great experience, but also negatively when the network performance and capability, isn't quite there. It can have a tremendous impact.
Absolutely. I think this idea of culture of inclusion, I mean, you can't argue that that's important, not just for academic progression, but also that student well-being, which you and I have spoken about in past sessions, and really being able to leverage the network. And I think the insight from the network to understand where the gaps are in that community setting. One size doesn't fit all, right? You said it yourself, students' needs aren't always the same. They don't always look the same. And I think having that flexibility and agility to service them and to serve a diverse pool of students is absolutely paramount, right?
No, absolutely. And I think, I'll use the word borders and boundaries, but once you've put that infrastructure in place, it literally does tear down those borders and boundaries, so that it creates this platform for inclusion, this platform where you can reach out to diverse groups. And, again, with hybrid and blended learning, the universities are delivering curriculum and their capabilities, their operational capabilities, to students all over the world. And I think that one of the things that's done is really open the university community's eyes to the fact that, it's a big world out there. And yes, the majority of students want to come to university and have that physical on-campus experience, but some can't, and they want to make sure that those that can't are included, that they give them that same opportunity. And once you start to get into that environment and that ability to be able to assure I'll call it the user experience, that connectivity experience, regardless of location, regardless of, potentially regardless of device,
Yeah,
extend that campus with no borders and boundaries.
it's
Then
almost
you've
like
got
a
foundation.
quality of experience, right? Like,
I think that's exactly the word, a quality of experience. And when you can do that and make that, location and device sort of independent, so that, you can build or prescribe a user experience for a student that looks good. When they're on the campus, that's relatively easy to manage. But once you thrust them out into a blended or hybrid learning, maybe caused by the pandemic, maybe for other purposes, then the universities kind of lose that control. They don't have the control over that wide area connection. They don't have control over the actual device. So, they might be able to see a student being connected, but they have very little control and very little ability to help them. And what we're saying is that with a equal, with that connection equality, with a prescribed user experience, we can start to extend the campus and the virtues that go with it. Extend security, extend that user experience, extend the ability to troubleshoot and remediate when there are issues. And that has the potential for a huge impact on the students, because all of a sudden those students that are living in those communities where they do struggle, whether it be because of, let's say technical poverty, they haven't got the latest and greatest device, or they haven't got the greatest bandwidth, or there are configuration issues, software issues on the laptop. Being able to very, very quickly identify what those issues are and put remediations in place is huge for the universities, because that then brings those students, out of the shadows and in line with everybody else. So the universities, pretty much every university, I think, will have some form of budget around technical poverty, there to really support and help those students that are disadvantaged, to really pinpoint and give them the opportunity to succeed. And fundamentally, that's what the universities are all about. They want every student to arrive, have a great experience and succeed, leaving with a great, having had a great experience, and recommend that to all their friends, families and communities. That's how it becomes a sustainable, learning experience.
I think that's actually a really profound way of looking at this, right? We're talking about technology inclusion, right? And I'm going to use the term again, level the playing field. We know that devices are increasing, applications are increasing, the need for network-based solutions, cloud applications, that's not going to go anywhere. And really safeguarding the fact that students from all walks of life, we're actually opening the doors, or helping to open the doors for better access to education, better access to learning. And I love the comment you made around removing the barriers. I mean, is this something that you've seen, especially for universities who are serving a lot of international students? Has that played a role in
Very
how
much so. I think when we got thrust into, again forced by COVID and the pandemic, but those students that were sent home, when they weren't having a great connectivity experience, there's only one place they call, and that's the university. So we saw trouble tickets and help desk tickets skyrocketing in many areas. But the problem was that the universities have very little power, because they have very little visibility into that connection, into that user experience, to be able to support that student. And what happens, if that was to continue for any period of time, is that the student will get fundamentally frustrated, disillusioned. That impacts the student's ability to reach their potential, how to get their qualifications and reach the potential, grades. But in the worst cases, students, they throw the towel in and leave. And that damages universities in many different ways, particularly government-funded universities, around student retention and monies they get, the revenues that they get funding from the government. So it has the potential to have a tremendous impact, as I say, both positively, if we do the right thing and have the right foundations and the right abilities in place, but also very negatively if we don't.
And just quickly, I know we only have about 5 minutes left. So again, if anyone has any questions, feel free to pop them in. But just to recap what we've talked about today, we're really looking at the network as a critical piece of infrastructure to maintain network access both on the campus and beyond. We're also suggesting that once that's in place, again, having the ability to then host other programs, initiatives, applications to further drive that inclusion and diversity perspective
Absolutely.
that is definitely top of mind. Is there anything else that you think is really a critical piece if for anyone who's maybe looking at how to apply this to their strategy or how they're actually delivering this in real life today?
Yeah, I mean, so in terms of real life today, we, as Juniper, as an innovator and provider of these solutions, we have customers, I could name one or two around the world that have invested in the technology to help them in a number of ways. One of them is by bringing back students to the campus environment, encourage students back to a safer and more secure environment, by being able to do things like contact tracing, journey planning, congestion alerting. So, when the students are all coming back now, as these communities come in, being able to provide that safe and secure environment for them, that is living with COVID and managing COVID, I think is a really, really important important point. But I wanted to say, for me as an individual, I think we're blessed that we're able to share our views and beliefs, and I strongly believe that every man, woman, and child, around the world should be given the same opportunity to be educated. We've sadly seen, the likes of COVID really impact businesses and the world in many different ways. But I think higher education particularly has been really, really damaged and really, really hurt, particularly those 18 to 24-year-olds, the impact that's been on them. So, a really good example, where would the world be, ask everyone on the call, without Teams, without Zoom, without wireless? I think personally we'd be on our knees. The financial impact of this would be damaging future generations. So the network, in so many different ways, is playing such an important part of enabling, our world to stay connected, but our students to remain, within their communities and, gain some sanity and gain that opportunity to be successful. Really, really key for me.
Jamie, you summed it up absolutely beautifully, and I think sharing in your passion around this culture of inclusion and opening up opportunities, ending that divide of technology diversity and really empowering establishments to raise the bar of access is it's all we can hope for, right? So
Yeah,
anyway,
absolutely. We can make
we
a difference.
Great way to end the day, Jamie. Well, thank you so much. We are out of time, unfortunately. You have our contact details if you have any further questions, you want to talk about things in more detail. Otherwise, please tune in next Wednesday, where Jamie and I will be back here on LinkedIn Live, and we're going to be talking more about specifically attracting students for universities. So look forward from hearing from you. Please sign up. Talk to you
Look
soon.
forward to it. Thank you.